Welcome all. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us for this webinar. I'm Rajesh Shetty. I'm the Business and Technology Advisor here at Software AG Government Solutions. I have with me Richard Wagner, who's our Chief Solutions Architect and resident expert on all things IoT. He's also a very nice guy. Quick intro of Software AG Government Solutions. We are a 50-year-old company, revenue of around $1 billion annual revenue. Software AG Government Solutions is focused on federal, state and local, and aerospace and defense industry. Our customers include IRS, SSA, US Army, Navy, Boeing, BAE Systems, Bank of America, ExxonMobil. Goal of today is to present to you our perspective or point of view on boosting manufacturing efficiency through IIoT-enabled asset tracking solution, and we will talk about this topic in the context of our solution, our offering, our capabilities, and our differentiators. First and foremost, I wanted to present to you the complete offering that we have. We are not just an asset tracking, asset management, monitoring solution provider. We are a digital transformation enabler, if you will, with data integration as our backbone. Yeah, so anything that we do is around the data. So we can be considered as a data company. On the middle, you have the IoT and analytics, which is highlighted because we will be focusing mostly on IoT and analytics because the solution that we are presenting today, the asset tracking, asset management, asset monitoring solution is based on IoT, primarily based on IoT and analytics with a little bit of integration, data integration involved. So we will, during this discussion, during this webinar today, you will see key elements of what we are presenting today, like the IoT device connectivity, the device management, the analytics, and the building of IoT applications, and solution accelerator. What we are presenting today, in a way, is a solution accelerator that is asset tracking solution built on our Cumulocity IoT analytics platform. Additionally, you see the integration and API management on the left there. We have been a pioneer in integration, data integration and applications integration for almost 25 years, be it application to application integration, business to business integrations, file transfers, and now with the API management being the modernized API-led integration approach, that is one of the key offerings that we have. In addition, on the right-hand side, you have the business and IT transformation capabilities from us. Think process mining, analytics, think business process management, process standardization, enterprise architecture, strategic portfolio management, all come in the business and IT transformation capabilities. So if you see the overall stack here, there are four key tenets or principles, if you will, for our solution. First being the breadth of all the capabilities that we have in our solution stack. The second being the stability, as in once you implement the solution, you have to have a high availability architecture. You have to take care of disaster recovery. So all that comes under the stability. The third aspect is the scalability. So once you build a solution and implement a solution, it should scale easily and fast to all the additional sites for a certain use case, or even for additional use cases that we want to build onto the platform. So, and then the last one, which is most important, is the innovation. So it's once you deploy a solution involving our platform, you do not stop there. You will continuously evolve it, innovate it, because on the back end, we are continuously innovating the platform and then providing you the latest versions as you deploy it into production, or you continue to maintain it in your production environment. So if you take the three pillars that I just showed and put them together, that's our digital transformation positioning, as to you can use all those three offerings together, which can be like the backbone of your digital transformation initiative. You do not have to implement all three at once. As in this case, if you are going with an asset tracking solution, your IoT and analytics platform will be implemented first. But as I mentioned earlier, there is a possibility that you may need to do some data integration. For example, you may need to get data from your asset management system into the Cumulocity platform. So that's where a little bit of integration will be involved. But as a overall digital transformation solution, you can implement all three of our offerings, and that can be your overall backbone for your digital transformation journey. One key takeaway from this particular slide that I want you all to take is the ATO, the authority to operate that we received from DHA, the Defense Health Agency, for Cumulocity, part of the Department of Defense. And in 2020, when the COVID pandemic struck, we were asked to build a solution for proximity tracking. So it is based on the asset tracking principles. We deployed the solution in weeks, got all what the solution does. It gets all the data from the variables from the military personnel. So if there is a 6 feet proximity between two variables, that particular instance will be logged into the Cumulocity platform. And in a scenario where a certain individual gets sick, then you have all the data required to do the proximity tracking. So the important aspect of the ATO that we received is the series of technical and architectural and security guidelines that we had to make sure that we follow or make sure that we comply. And based on that, we received the ATO. So it's a smart manufacturing program. If you think of your smart manufacturing program and how our offerings there will align with them, you have the 5 strategic initiatives that can change from company to company, but it's flavors of those 5, as we have seen. So the first one is the smart manufacturing with regards to collecting data from your devices, machines, sensors. The device agnosticism is important there. The use case agnosticism of the platform is important so that you can scale easily. The second one, you see there's the factory automation. What we've seen is when we go to the factory floor and evaluate the manufacturing operation, there are a lot of these systems. You have the MES applications, the PLM, all the different applications that are there, but there is still not integration or an automation, if you will. So there is a lot of manual work that goes on where somebody is going in and entering the same data again in different systems. There might be a spreadsheet that somebody is entering. So all those information then becomes challenging to keep in sync. So our proposition is to automate all those processes so that if you have a single source of data in Cumulocity platform, that can then become your source for all the other application systems where certain data is not available. Third is the process standardization. Think of factories or sites having different processes, not necessarily because they have that requirement, just because it was developed or implemented differently. And the way you can standardize it is using our process mining feature, where you can capability where you can take the data from various application systems from various sites and figure out where the bottlenecks are, where the variances are across the processes, and work towards continuous process improvement and standardization. The fourth is the IT-OT integration. As I mentioned, data integration is in our DNA. So when you think about OT systems and when you think about data that has come from your machines into the Cumulocity platform, you wouldn't want to stop there. There are possibilities of integrating that data to back-end systems like the ERPs, and also extending it to your supplier system. So let's say that you have a supplier sending a part and you want to get the ASN and automate it directly to the Cumulocity platform, the IoT platform. You can do that through our integration capabilities. And last but not least is the supply chain optimization or supply chain resiliency, if you will. I mean, all the 4 strategic pillars that I talked about earlier lead into the supply chain resiliency, because it's all about making sure that you are delivering your customers' products in time, and you're delivering quality products. So all the process efficiencies and the advantages that you gain out of the digital transformation leads you to the supply chain resiliency, whether it is interacting with your customers or interacting with your suppliers, the interoperability of applications and systems across your ecosystem. So asset tracking, as per an analyst report, companies are going to spend almost a total of $55 billion across industries in the next 2 to 3 years. And there is an anticipated ROI of more than $500 billion within a year or two on asset tracking specific initiative. So the way we see asset tracking, I mean, the use cases that you see here are flavors of the overall asset tracking and management use case. So these are like sub use cases, if you will. So location tracking, it's of course tracking the location, but in the context of the operational efficiency, but it's also in the context of making sure that you can locate an item if there is an audit, if there's an auditor coming to your facility and trying to locate an item. That is possible. And then the third aspect to this is if there is, let's say, a calibrated tool and there is an expiry date for that calibrated tool, and you want to make sure that you get an alert to an operational worker so that they can get that back to the calibration team to recalibrate it. So there are various flavors to why you would need location tracking, right? And all of those different requirements can be fulfilled from with a solution. Inventory management is another. I talked to you about where the tracking of a particular part that comes from your supplier, right? From tracking from the ASN coming from the supplier, you can connect to their system and then getting it into your facility. And once it gets into the facility, then start tracking it for the location aspect. If there is any additional inventory management functionality that's required that's not fulfilled by your MES application or your ERP, you can build it within the platform, add those functionality within the platform. Vendor consigned inventory, similar. If there is any vendor consignment inventory that you want to manage, that can be done through the same solution here. Asset monitoring, think of this as not just now location, but also let's say that you want to know the temperature or the humidity or the speed of your asset, that you need to monitor. All that can be done through the monitoring capability. Proximity tracking, we saw the earlier, proximity tracking that was required for the COVID use case. This can now have relate to people. You can have people to things, proximity, things to things. So all those kind of different aspects of where you would need people tracking in conjunction with the asset tracking. Hazard avoidance. This is a very important EHS use case where you want to ensure worker safety, and that can be done through the same solution. People counting, again, this comes to worker safety, queuing and dwell time monitoring, discovery of personnel and operational efficiencies around that particular use case. So you see this slide and you can see the breadth of all the different scenarios that is possible that can be done through the solution. Again, this is just a sample of what is possible. If there is an asset that needs to be tracked, you can track it. So just a picture of what are the different assets that you can track, right? You can do manufacturing tools, you can do personnel. There is chemical drums, for example, if it's a part that you're getting from a supplier that needs to be tracked. And then you can extend it, and then machines. If you want to track a machine, if there is a machine that's not fixed to the ground, but it keeps moving from one department to other, you can track it. And then you can extend this also to office buildings, like the assets like the computers or the phones or even the smart cards. All that assets can be tracked using the solution. So this is a digital representation of what asset tracking is all about. So you see the assets on the left-hand side on your physical floor, and then that is attached to a tag or a tracker, if you will, which will then communicate to the anchor, and then the data then feeds into a Cumulocity IoT platform, and then we represent that data on the platform. So in a way, this is a digital twin capability of your asset. You would see exactly what the asset is doing physically in the platform, and a digital representation of it. From an operational scenarios perspective, we have the 4 scenarios. We have the inside building, where a tracker, an asset can be inside the building, and that's the main use case, if you will, main scenario rather, operational scenario, if you will. Then you have the restricted building entrance, in the sense that an asset can not be tracked inside the building. So how you manage the tracking of it is you track when it comes inside the building and when it goes outside of the building at the gate. As long as you have that information, you know where the asset is at any point of time. Even if it is in a restricted building, you know that it's inside that building, right? And then the third aspect is the outside area, where you can have an asset in the outside area that you want to track. And in this case, the mobile vehicle that you see has the anchor, and that reads the data and feeds into the Cumulocity platform. And lastly, the access gates. If an asset is leaving your premises, you can track it, and you can also initiate a video camera clip of taking the images or the video of the truck that moves out. And it can apply also to a person taking the asset out of the building. So from an infrastructure standpoint, of course, the Cumulocity platform is the solution that is the encompassing platform that handles the data and the analytics and the integration and the data operation aspect of it. From a hardware infrastructure point of view, what you will need here, I'm showing the inside of the building as to what is needed there. You of course have the tags or the trackers that connect to the assets. In addition, you will put all the anchors that you see by those blue dots. So those are the anchors that talk to the tags and collect the data. And you will need a few gateways that will communicate that data from the anchors onto the Cumulocity platform. And the way the tracking happens is by triangulation of the data across the anchors. The good part about this is that in this particular scenario, we have anchors that are battery operated. There are anchors available that have 5 to 10 years of battery. Even the tags are battery operated. So you have, dependent on how you use it, we can discuss more in detail when we get to that point. But there are different considerations on how to conserve battery. As far as the outside area is concerned, in this particular scenario, we do not have any infrastructure outside. So, of course, the assets has the tags, but your mobile vehicles there has the has the anchors that will track the assets when it comes to the assets where they are placed. So once they come out of the building, they moves from the inside tracking protocol to outside tracking, which is GPS based. And then once it goes back, it will do that again. So when the mobile vehicles are outside, it will communicate the information back to the Cumulocity platform through cellular network. With that, I will pass it on to Richard. Richard?
Hey, thanks, Rajesh. So what I'd like to do is just talk to you about our platform real quick. We have our Cumulocity IoT platform is rated very highly in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, and we'll go through that at the end. But some of the key features, it has a device management capability where you can both via APIs or through connectivity or through GUIs. You can create devices. We can model any kind of devices. So, what you're going to see today, we're modeling, ventilators, we're uh, pallets, cars, phones, and things like that. And with the device management capability, you can update the firmware, the software, and manage the devices remotely. Uh, we have a cockpit capability, and you'll see where we have different dashboards where you can easily create your dashboards the way that you want them to track things on floors or update device information and things like that. We also have the capability to offload data from the platform in both real time or ETL type, where we move the data from what we're getting from our data model off to other systems. We have integration to MES systems. So with the smart manufacturing type things, if we want to take a production plan and bring it in and compare it to what's actually happening in our platform, we can do that. And one of the strongest parts of our platform is our analytics capability. We do analytics at multiple levels on our platform. We do it what we call smart rules, and you'll see that where we have geofence rules that a business person can set up around a building. The next layer up with that would be analytics builder, where you can do very complicated analytics on our platform via just drag and drop capability, where if I want to see how long an asset stays in a certain location over 10 days, I can do things like that, and you can send alerts out of the platform. And then we also support microservices and and real-time streaming analytics, where if you write things in if you're a .NET shop or you're a C shop or a Java shop and you want to write things and deploy it to our platform, you can do that because we support microservices. The other thing that I wanted to cover real quick about the platform is you can deploy this anywhere. So we have customers that are in completely locked down networks where no information goes out of say, a factory floor. And so, we do that with multiple customers. And it's the same platform in that kind of setup as it is in the cloud. And we offer cloud capabilities. We support Azure. We support AWS. We have our own data center that will manage it all for you, or we can put it in your data center and you guys can manage it, or we can just deploy it right to the shop floor. So with that, I'm going to get out of the architecture and I'm going to start doing the demo. Let me share my screen. Okay, so there's multiple things that you're going to want to do when you set up asset tracking in your location. This here, I'm going to set up assets and sites based on a GUI, but most people do it through APIs. So, and I'm going to show you that too. So this will get you, I have a pallet and I want to create a pallet and I want to put a tracker on that pallet. So what this will do is it'll allow you to say, this asset is connected to this tracking device. And the other thing that you want to do is you want to position your anchors around the building. So I'll show you that, how we typically go around and set that up. But it's usually pretty quick to go in and create assets, create the trackers inside the platform. If you have, an asset database with all your assets that you want to track, all the tools you want to track in your factory, we can take those and create APIs where we can just reach into your database and pull that out and put it in the platform. But let me show you real quick some of the things that you can do with the GUI. So inside of here, you can go in and you can create a site. You can create a location. You can create an area or a zone. So you could have, say, site 1, and you could have 10 different locations assigned to it. And then inside the locations, you could have different areas that you want to track things inside of your device. And so a site, when you load it in there, it looks like this. So the current site, and we're going to focus on, we have a partnership with MXD in Chicago. And so this is where this is based on, and we have actual anchors and tracking devices in this location. And so you could go in and you see this, it'll give you the site name, address. You have over here how many total assets were being tracked. We have total assets of 11. 6 of them have been assigned a tracker. 5 of them are not tracked or untracked. So if you come down and you look at assets down here, you can see that there's multiple assets that are being tracked here. And then if I wanted to add a new asset, I could just go in and add a serial number, and I could say, and I could give it a type. And all this is configurable in the configuration tab. We just call this a palette, and 3 by 3. We can put expected area, and you can put, different manufacturing companies, and all this is configurable. And then you just save that, and you can assign it to the tracker right here, or you can wait to assign it later. The trackers work the same way. You come in here and you can add a new tracker, and you can register one, or you could register them in bulk. And so then what you have here is trackers. This one here is an EPC code where you have an RFID capability, and you can assign an RFID tag to an asset. Then if you go in here, some of the interesting things that we've done in some of this is that you can search for things by serial numbers. So if I go in here and I do 456 and apply it, okay, it's going to bring up that drum. And you can do the same thing with part numbers and different things like that. One of the use cases that I'm going to highlight here is if you have 10,000 things that you're tracking, and you have a problem with one of them. In this case, a shelf life is expired on an asset. Okay, what happens is we throw alarms in the platform. So if I have an alarm of that I've assigned to minor because this thing is about ready to, the shelf life is going to expire, and I want to find it, I'll just click that minor, and then this will show me every asset that is in that condition. And then what I can do is I can show that on the map. And what it'll do is it'll just drill you right into the MXD office, right into the floor plan where that asset is. So then you could go and get that asset and take it out of whatever you do with the, since the shelf life was expired. The next thing I want to show you is the device management capability of the platform. And well, let me step back. I want to show you the APIs first. Okay. So this here, what I just did in the GUI, you can do it like if I want to create a site, and this here will be the today demo site, and I push that in to the platform. If I want to create a tracker, I can just go ahead and push that in, and these are APIs that are available as part of the platform. And so everything that I did in that GUI, you can do it via an API. And so, I created this today site. So if I go over to the platform now, I can go to all devices, and this is what I was talking about earlier, where I was talking about the capabilities of the platform, where you have you can create groups, you can have smart groups, you can create simulators. But if I go in here to all the devices in there, and I just do today, and you can see that asset that I just created shows up on the platform, and then I can start doing things with that. Um, then if I go back and here, I want to look at my iPhone. Okay, so I have an iPhone online right here, and some of the things that happen out of the box for this is you have the location. This is where that's located, and if I want to track it over time, you can see that where this has been in the last hour. So I must have took this phone when I was walking my dogs earlier today. um, but you can see that it's very powerful, just out of the box capability to just track where things are over time. Then if you go in here on top of that, you can see, like, if you had a tool and you had a tool where you had a sensor where you could show acceleration. If I shake this, you can see that information is being sent from the asset to the platform, and you can track over time what this is. And then with the analytics platform, what we've done is we went in and we created an average over time with the analytics builder to show what that is. But what this is useful for is that you not only can track the location of an asset, you can track the information about the asset. Then I'll show you one other thing in the device management part of this. Uh, oops. I must have pulled it out of there. Okay, so then what I want to do is I want to go on and show you the platform. Okay, so inside here, this is things that we're tracking at MXD. Okay, so if you go in here, overall, we have 6 total assets. We have 2 alarms on the assets. So if I look at this one right here, I have a critical alarm on it. I can drill into it, and it'll show me that this has exceeded the temperature thresholds. And so that's the problem with that right now. So then I know that I have a problem with this asset, and I can send a maintenance person out to work with it. Um, that's just, if you look at the overview part of it, and you can drill into, where different things are on the platform, and then you can drill into the asset overview. So inside of the asset overview, I have these assets that I've been tracking. Okay, so if I go over here to this palette, it'll take me right again to the location of the MXD. I can define this anything I want. So if I had expensive equipment on this and I wanted to track this pallet around, I could do that. And this has got this puck assigned to it where you have the battery level of the puck. So if you have an asset that you're tracking, like a pallet, and the battery is going to run out on the puck that you have assigned to the pallet, you can put an alarm on this that says this is going to run out. So I want to, say at 10% battery level, I want to go replace the battery or replace the puck. Then over here, this is the actual MXD floor, and you can see that as I move that asset, that pallet around, it moves it to where I could see it in a different position in the in a different location. So if it went from here to here, I would see it move over here. There might be a small delay, but I will know where to go get that asset. The other thing in the asset that I wanted to show you is with this ventilator. Again, you can do different things. This is getting location updates all the time. And you can see that from the device and from the gateway, I'm getting fed location information all the time. And so again, if I go in here, this is just a different layout and of the facility. this is where that ventilator is, okay? And what we've done is we've set up a geofence that anytime it goes outside that area, it'll send a geofence violation that it's moved out of the area. And the way that that was done is with this smart rule. And it's real easy to go in and, you can call it whatever you want. You can edit the geofence. This is the position at MXD where that is. And uh, then I can say on leaving, or I can do on entering or leaving. It'll send an alarm off based on what's happening, and it just sends the geofence violation. So in this case, if say somebody was taking that ventilator and it was going outside of your building, you could throw an alarm where the guy at the gate could go and take a look at what's going on. And so this is just at a very, we went in and we created the assets, we assigned the trackers to them. I show you the kind of information you can feed in. You can do it with APIs and things like that. The last thing I want to show you is how easy it is to do this inside of your location. So this here is actual, the assignment of anchors. These are anchors that we put around the building, and you didn't have to wire them. All you do is there's like a two-way adhesive that you put on the back of this, and you put it in the front. These batteries inside here can be changed out, so we can track the batteries. And so if the anchor is starting to lose its battery life, we can go in and we can change those batteries. But I'll just walk through around the building here real quick. This is just another position where we put another anchor. And again, to set these up inside inside your facility to track things inside your building is relatively very straightforward. Then the last thing that I want to show you, these are just different form factors of the tags, okay? So inside here, this is the puck that we were talking about. This could be, something you put on a person, or you could put this anywhere, and you would automatically track that asset around the different locations. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Rajesh.
Thank you, Reg. Thank you for that excellent demo. So to summarize, I would like to highlight this differentiation that we have on our platform and the benefits, right? So if there are three takeaways from this particular slide or from this particular presentation, these are the ones. One is it is device agnostic. Our platform can connect to any devices, machines, BLE tags, UWB tags, any partners in the ecosystem we can connect to. And the connectivity is very easy with our platform. The second is the use case agnosticism that we have been talking about. So what we saw today was the asset tracking, monitoring, and management, but you can extend it to also do smart manufacturing as connecting to the machines and getting the data for predictive maintenance or preventive maintenance, or any further integration of that data or consumption of that data. And third and most important is the ease of implementation and the use. So as Rich pointed out, it's very modular. You have capabilities of adding apps. That you always have to follow the 90-10 rule, as in you will have 90% of your features and functionality available within the platform that you can plug and play, and then that other 10% is what you're doing to configure it to your specific needs. From a device standpoint, you see all the various aspects. There are devices which are wire-free, like the anchors that Red showed, fast and cost-efficient install, no wiring, if you will, the full wireless coverage, long battery life. I talked about 5+, 10+ years, and then easily replaceable, as in today you will have certain devices. Tomorrow that devices might be obsolete, or the hardware might evolve, and so you do not have to reinvent everything. You have the platform in place. You will just need to connect to the new devices, right? With that, I have a few minutes for Q&A. So let me take a few questions, Reg. So the first question I have here, Reg, is what are the different deployment options for the solution?
Yeah, I covered that a little bit inside the demo, but we can deploy this in a self-contained network. We can do a hybrid we can take from, say, you have 10 manufacturing sites and you wanted to feed up, to your headquarters information about different assets across multiple plants. You could do that where you could, just send certain information from the edge up to and the cloud, and that could be hybrid. We support a total hybrid or a total cloud solution where the assets could transmit data out to Azure or AWS or Google in a very secure manner.
Thank you, Reg. I have a second question here. Does the platform support Wi-Fi Ethernet? Sorry.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of different ways. We've set up LoRa trackers where the gateway would backhaul over cell, so we can do it that way. Or we've set up where we can use Wi-Fi on the gateways to send the data to the platform from the gateways, or we can connect it directly into an Ethernet connection. There's a lot of devices out there where they can be powered over Ethernet as well.
Thanks, Reg. What different protocols for device connectivity are supported?
We support a lot of different protocols. Common ones for asset tracking scenarios are BLE. We also have done some stuff with narrowband. Narrowband really depends on the coverage in different locations. We've done LoRa implementations at some locations where you have a gateway on say a yard where you're tracking vehicles. So we support most any protocol that you would want to use in this scenario. And RFID, of course. Yeah.
So you did talk about asset tracking here. There was a smart manufacturing where you're connecting to machines directly, use case that you mentioned. How do you implement that? Do you need additional instance for that configuration, for that additional use case?
No, we can use the same platform. The platform is built where you have cockpits, and you can set up, different cockpits where one's asset tracking and one's for your equipment on the floor, where you wanted to track, say, OEE or things like that. And so you can have separate applications or dashboards, cockpits that you set up for both use cases on the same platform. And then it's very fine grained. So, you might not want people that are on the manufacturing floor that are looking at, alerts coming off of machines on the floor to also be looking at the asset tracking where the tools are and things like that. So you can set it up where you can set access control up on the same platform, very fine grain who can do what inside the platform.
Thank you, Reg. In the interest of time, I have some few other questions which will follow up offline to individually. Thank you again, everybody, for your time today, for taking time out of your busy schedule. Appreciate all the wonderful questions, and we will respond to some of them offline. Thank you all. Thanks, Reg. Have a nice day.